Hey everyone, uh, so I'm just making the second video of the series I'm doing on the events of World War II. And I'm going to do two series on it, one for the events in the Pacific and one for the events in Europe, because otherwise the series would be unimaginably long and would take way too long for me to figure out. But this is the story of how fascism came to be in Europe. So, obviously, it all started in the 1930s. Surprisingly, actually not in Germany, but in Italy, with a man named Benito Mussolini. Mussolini was quite an interesting person. He was an avid socialist, to say the least. And prior to World War One, he was actually he fled to Switzerland to avoid military service, and while he was there, he did a lot of very annoying stuff for the Swiss, and including writing socialist newspapers. This gets him in a bit of trouble with the Swiss police, who arrested him, sent him back to Italy, completing the military service he previously avoided. And that's where things get kind of interesting. Because, well, in 1922, Mussolini went to the King of Italy and basically just said, "Make me Prime Minister or I'll make me Prime Minister." And the king is thinking this is an absolute joke. Like, how is this one person supposed to get his way from me? Mussolini had several thousands of supporters for his fascist movement. And eventually, it worked. The king made him prime minister, and then he went about establishing a dictatorship with himself at the centre. And there we go. Europe's got fascist dictator number one. Next up is Germany. And ironically, it kind of starts where the last video ended off, with Hitler. Hitler was a soldier in World War One, and he was insanely nationalistic. No one was more annoyed about Germany's humiliation in World War One than Hitler. Absolutely no one was more annoyed. The problem here is that, well, it's Hitler. He's not exactly a sane person. Alright. Don't mind that. That is just me not realising that I actually have another hand that I can use to scratch an itch on my eye instead of the one that's holding my phone. Probably should have picked a better time to relace my school shoes than the night before I have school. But anyway, so Hitler was quite shall we say, strong right-wing person. And at some point in the 1930s, he was made the Chancellor made him, I can't remember what position it was, but it was a very, very high government position. Actually, no, he got made Chancellor by the King. I forgot about that. But either way. Following Hitler being made Chancellor, he went full megalomaniac, establishing a dictatorship with himself at its centre. There you go. Europe's got fascist dictator number 2. Here's the thing. Hitler kind of wanted back the land that Germany had lost in World War I. And he was willing to go a mile too far to get that, to get his wish. Hence, we ended up with World War II. Contrary to popular belief, World War II actually didn't start in Europe. It actually started in the Pacific, with Japan invading China in 1936. But this series is on the war in Europe, which began in 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. So, anyway. Neat fact for you. But anyway, following this, Germany and Italy both very strongly resented the Allied powers of World War I, that being the French, the Russians, which by this time was the Soviet Union, the British, the French, the Americans, and the Russians were the ones that Germany and Italy both mainly resented. Germany just didn't really hate Russia, so to speak. They just hated communism, which, wonder where I've heard that one before. But either way, Germany and Italy both hugely resented the British and the French. Germany, because obvious reasons, World War I, they lost and got absolutely humiliated by the British and the French, and in some part of the United States, who kind of just showed up with shotguns, and let's just say made a German trench a not very fun place to be. But it wasn't as much the Americans that Germany hated as much as the fact that who America was allied with. Because America was allied with a few people like the British, the French, the Polish. Well, not as much the Polish, really. In fact, I'm pretty sure American opinion on what was happening in Europe in World War II when Germany invaded Poland was, I'm pretty sure American feelings were, oh well, because America was isolationist. They wanted to stay out of the conflict by any means necessary because it was hugely expensive to fight a war, no one's surprised. And America didn't really want to fight a war. They kind of just wanted to maintain peace. But the reason that Italy resented the Allies was during World War I, Italy was an allied nation. And they actually thought they were going to get a huge amount of territory out of it. Except when the war ended, they got an absolute minuscule amount in comparison to what they were hoping to get. And this absolutely infuriates Mussolini, who kind of just wants territory. He is sick and tired of Italy being portrayed as weak. So obviously, following these two men assuming power, they made friends with another country by the name of Imperial Japan. Not to be confused with modern Japan. Imperial Japan was much, much different. Militant and similar to Italy and Germany, they believed they were the supreme people on Earth, and they wanted to just militarize and take over more stuff. And these these three countries would eventually sign something known as the Tripartite Pact, which is basically some big fancy alliance, which is basically the World War II equivalent of NATO Article 5, basically stating, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. Which is probably why Germany declared war on America following Pearl Harbor. Because America declared war on Japan, and then Germany, because of the Tripartite Pact and their alliance with Japan, declared war on America, subsequently making their situation exponentially harder, but ignoring that. So that is the story of how fascism came about in Europe. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.